Well, today is my last day after being 3 months as your minister in residence. And oh my goodness, I have had a myriad of experiences. I've been well taken care of by the wonderful women of this unity. And I said at our very first time together that you were going to be watching my personal evolution, because I get up here and guess what? I give you a message, but I get to make sure that I am walking my talk. And I'll tell you what, therein is the challenge. But what I tell you is if I can do it, you can do it too. And you've all heard my story unless you're brand new. But so this has been a part of my experience in evolving and coming into higher states of consciousness. So I want to thank you so much for allowing me, for inviting me to be here. Okay, so today we're going to do a review of the lessons that I've given you over the 3 months that I've been here. So if you may recall, I've had two major themes. The first is in knowing that everything is what? Consciousness. Got that? Everything is consciousness. And when we are faced with choices, we actually have only two choices, really. And what are those two choices, everybody? Fear or love. Fear or love, yes. How are we going to react to any given situation, no matter how difficult that situation is? We get to choose fear or love. So I'm going to use an analogy. Our egos seem to be in charge, don't they? Our egos are usually in fear. And why are our egos in fear? Because it's meant as a protection mechanism. So we have learned how to stay safe one way or another through our programming or through our perceptions from our experience. So our egos have limited knowledge, very limited knowledge, and yet we're allowing our egos to be in the driver's seat. So I have an analogy of what our ego is, and that is a gnat. Our egos are gnats. Now, actually, this comes from the way of mastery, of which I am a student. But what a great analogy, because what's a gnat? All it does is it's instinctive. All it does is fly around looking for food, right? And where it's going to land for the night to sleep. That's it. We're kind of similar. Our egos just are looking for food and shelter. In other words, the gnat is in survival mode. But who are we really? Are we that gnat who has limited understanding, who has limited experience, that gnat that knows very little? Who are we truly? We are spirit, are we not? If we would, If we would put our gnats in the back seat and live from spirit, if we know that the knowledge available to us is more than our programming, more than our conditioning, if we know ourselves as spirit, as God within us, the divine is within us, this is who we truly are. We are aspects of God. Whoa, we are aspects of God. You know what that means? That there's greater knowledge available to us. And you know how we access that knowledge? Somebody, how do we access the greater knowledge that's available to us? So, meditation for one. In fact, meditation is the way we do it. We have to quiet our minds. In fact, I gave a lesson where I talked about how we have to empty our minds, because what's going through our heads? Chatter, monkey mind. And remember, I gave you some statistics. 95% of our thinking, according to a study, and I didn't bring the name of the study with me right now, but I did before. 95% of our thinking is negative, and 80% of our thinking is thought loops. Same old thing going over and over and over and over. Wow, what if we expanded our thinking? What if we mastered our minds so that we could get greater information directly from source? Charles Fillmore said, when he had a challenge, what did he do? He went directly to headquarters. He went to the source of all, the creator, because we are an aspect of creator. And we can do that too. But we have to empty our minds to make space for new information, for divine guidance that is available to every single one of us. So, in regards to consciousness, in the Bible, in Proverbs 23:7, it says, "For as a man thinketh in his heart," what? So is he, and so is she, right? In Philippians 4, verse 8, we are encouraged to focus on thoughts of what is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, and praiseworthy. How many of us focus on those thoughts on a regular basis? And yet, when we focus on what is lovely and pure and noble and true and admirable and excellent, guess what? That's what we create. Because remember, because God is within us, creator, source is within us, that makes us what? Co-creators. We co-create with our what? Thoughts, beliefs, words. That's the unity way, right? And so we be very conscientious about what we are creating in every single moment. So when we are up against a challenge, remember a few lessons ago, I was talking about non-duality. So we have been programmed since birth to think and believe in duality, good and bad, right and wrong, right? But we get past duality into non-duality when we see what may be what we call bad isn't bad at all. Why isn't it bad? It's not bad because from every experience that we have, we get to what? Learn and grow and evolve. And so every experience we have is for us. The universe is never against us. The universe is always for us. And when we have an experience that we think is bad, it really isn't. And so we look for the lesson or the what? Yep, which is the lesson or the blessing, right? So I'm reviewing, I have to look at, so I gave you a story. I think it was on my first time here, maybe the second. It was the second time I was here. I gave you a story about two kittens that my son found, a litter of abandoned kittens in a parking lot near a dumpster. And all of them were chowing down on a greasy napkin, right? My son went in to save them. And what happened? They were scaredy cats and they scattered, but he managed to scoop up two of them and he brought them home and he very, very carefully, gently acclimated them to being in a nice, warm home where they got food that was nourishing to them. And but they had two different personalities. Remember this story? One kitten was what? A scaredy cat. A scaredy cat. The other kitten was curious. And so my son, it started out with him feeding them, but sitting at a distance, watching them. And every day he would move a little closer and a little closer. And the one kitten, as soon as it became aware of his presence, boom, it was out of there. But the other kitten, oh, it was curious. And by the time he sat as they were eating close enough to reach down and stroke their little heads. Well, the one kitty, the black and white kitty, no way, it was out of there. But the little orange kitty, it's like, whoa, not only do I get food, but ooh, yeah, a little massage of my ears and my head, and it liked that. And then my son brought them in the house and we dangled strings, and the black and white kitty, it was so fearful, it stayed under the couch. But the orange kitty, it got to play and have a grand old time. And one kitten was in heaven and the other kitten was where? Oh, in a terrible hell. They were getting the exact same treatment, but they had totally different perceptions. And I told this story because it was those two kittens were a role model for me. And I had to ask myself, how often am I a scaredy cat and I turn and run and I don't even recognize that this is for me? And it is good. But one kitten, it didn't turn and run, did it? It said, wow, wow, here I have found my benefactor. Here is my benefactor. Whoa. So I'm telling this story not just to have a story. I want you to think. I want you to think, are you a scaredy cat? For no reason? Oh, you come up with a reason because of what? Programming. Programming. Recognize the program and say, hey, I am rewiring my brain. I am going to think differently, and I'm going to see that this is a blessing for me. I'm going to recognize the blessing here. If you have that determination, guess what? You will see the blessing, and then you will be focused on what is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, and praiseworthy. So I want us to get, back to consciousness. We live, move, and have our being in God. But guess what? Science is now showing us that God is, we live, move, and have our being in the quantum field of what? Possibilities. Possibilities. Every moment is a new possibility. And that new possibility is responding to your what? Beliefs, thoughts, words, expectations. If you don't like what you are creating in the field, the quantum field of possibilities, guess what? You are not stuck. You aren't stuck. We get to change it. We get to change it. With beliefs, thoughts, words, actions, that easy. That easy. Whew. Ooh, but changing our mind may not be that easy, right? And so I have given you, over the 3 months I've been here, I have given you several tools. And I know that before I came, you already had a bunch of tools. I just gave you some more. I suggest that you choose a tool or two and use them. Use them until you've mastered them. And you'll know that you've mastered them when your life has changed. So I'm going to repeat this story about myself, my personal story. So you have heard me tell you many, many times that since I was a teenager, I have suffered from deep, frequent depressions where I have wanted to opt out. But then, for some reason, I had the method and I had the place. But for some reason, I didn't follow through with it. And at some point, I decided that I wanted to live my life differently. Actually, I had a boyfriend that said, who threatened me, and whatever motivates you, right? He said, if you don't stop this behavior, our relationship isn't going to last. And it's like, oh, I like this relationship and I want it to last. And so I need to figure out what to do. I discovered unity. I discovered meditation. I went to therapy. I was determined to turn my life around. And you guys, I haven't been on an antidepressant for since many years, just about 10 actually. And I don't get depressed anymore. Now, would you say that when you see me in the 3 months that we've been acquainted with each other, how am I usually in your presence? Joyful. Joyful. Thank you. I'm glad you recognized that, because that was my intention. It's like, I want to live a joyful life. I'm tired of being depressed. I am your poster child for doing a 180 from being severely depressed most of the time to being joyful most of the time. Just play some music and let me dance. I tell ya, enter the room and let me hug you, please. 180. 180. If I can do it, you can do it. Oh, I tell ya. Okay, I need to be conscious of the time. So, we also talked about, some of the tools. Now, this is like a classroom at times, right? I've given you worksheets, taken you through processes. And one of them was, I wanted you to understand, to think in terms of not God up there in the clouds, So we at Unity, we teach that we're an aspect of God. The divine is within us. But how often do we know that? You say, yeah, I believe the divine is within me. But how often do we know that? So I presented you with a little exercise using 4-column prayer, where you get to practice using language that helps you remember that God within me is, and you state your desire. Now, we talked about that. What is desire? We all have desires. Hey, we at Unity and in New Thought, we do what we call manifesting, right? Remember years ago when we started, we first learned about manifesting, and that's manifest a parking place. Of course, you in Montreal may not understand that. None of you drive cars. Well, I shouldn't say none. Some of you do. In Utah, everybody drives a car. So we manifest parking places. Whoa, we discovered, oh, that's easy, Actually, what else do we manifest? Remember I told you I had on my vision board a boat. I lived in, for some of you, you knew folks. I lived in Hawaii for 28 years, and I wanted a sailboat. It was on my vision board. Guess what? I did not manifest a sailboat. You know what I did manifest? 3 friends with sailboats. Now, if you know anything about having a boat in the saltwater, you'll know that was a blessing. So our desires often are for material things, right? But in that talk that I gave about 4-column prayer, I encouraged you to instead have a desire for God attributes. Because remember, if we desire to be kind, if we desire to have abundance, if we desire God attributes, then we know that when we seek the kingdom first, the kingdom of God, what?
All else is added.
All else is added unto us. So first seek the kingdom. And so I gave you a list of God attributes. Actually, Charles Fillmore gave us a list of God attributes. And Charles Fillmore said, if we develop these attributes, we will achieve Christ consciousness. 12 powers: faith, will, as in God's will, not my personal will. Zeal, ooh, enthusiasm, my favorite. Love, strength, understanding. Oh, please give me understanding. There is crazy things happening in this world. There are crazy people in my face. I seek to understand at a higher level, at a God level, at a Christ level. Imagination. wisdom, order, life, abundance, peace, light, joy, wholeness, beauty. That's what we seek. That's what we want to desire. God in me is enthusiasm. How may I greet every moment, including a bad, there's no such thing as bad moment, right? My perception. How do I then, which one did I just say? I forgot. Enthusiasm, zeal. Yes, I want to be enthusiastic. God within me is zeal. I am enthusiastic about every moment that greets me, no matter what. I know that with enthusiasm for this particular situation, I know that with enthusiasm, I can see the lesson, see the blessing. I can change it for the good of all, not just me, the good of all. And so we went through that process, 4-column prayer. The divine in me is faith. I am, our words of creation, right? I am faithful. I am confident that God is in charge of my life. Not the gnat, but God. Okay, then. Whew. I took you through Ho'oponopono. In fact, we went through 2 weeks of Ho'oponopono and a Wednesday class. Ho'oponopono is a radical form of forgiveness. But guess what? Somebody sets you off. And do you remember? We're not necessarily forgiving a particular person or situation. What is Ho'oponopono for? Let me hear it. It is for cleansing your consciousness, nobody else. Ho'oponopono is a tool that you get to use to clear your own consciousness. And we did a lot of work with that. We started out using a physical disability that we might have, right? And looking at it and asking forgiveness, well, actually, in clearing our consciousness. I'm developing arthritis here. Before I came here, I got a shot in the ligament to take away the pain. And the pain was so bad, I couldn't use my right hand. Guess what? I'm right-handed. Have you ever lost the use of your dominant hand? And it was so weak that I couldn't do anything with it. So the shot took away the pain, which meant that it wasn't painful to use it, but the bone here is beginning to, well, I see signs of debilitating arthritis. And it's like, okay, I get to walk my talk. I get to walk my talk. Myrtle Fillmore killed herself of what?
TB.
Tuberculosis. What? Tuberculosis. Yes. Took her 2 years, but you know what? She healed herself of tuberculosis. How did she do that? Every little cell in my body is healthy. Actually, her prayer, her visualization, her intention, she had heard. So just for our new folk, Myrtle Fillmore and Charles Fillmore were the co-founders of Unity. And one of the first things that Myrtle did was heal herself. She had heard at a lecture that we do not inherit no disease. She took that to heart, and she had many family members who had tuberculosis, but she was determined, and so did she, but she was determined to change that. And she did. She, using visualization and affirmations, she actually eliminated tuberculosis from her body in the late 1800s. So if Myrtle Fillmore can do it, I can do it. I'm going to try it. I'm going to use methods to eliminate this arthritis before I go to the doctor, the surgeon. So back to Ho'oponopono. So using it, thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful day. So I'm telling my body, I'm sorry for any unconscious beliefs, thoughts, words, actions, emotions that are less than love and wholeness, that have contributed to this condition. And I am in the quantum field of new possibilities, of potentiality. In this field, I can make the change. Forgive me for any unconscious programming that has contributed to the creation of this condition. Thank you for showing me where my consciousness needs a cleansing. And I love you. I love my right hand. I love this vehicle that gets me around in the world in delightful ways. I love life and all the gifts that have been bestowed upon me. I'm in love. And I hope you are too. So together, I'm telling you, I'm inviting you to form a group of people that are powerful in their intentions and take a physical debilitation. Take one, and each of you work on creating a change in the field, the quantum field here of potentiality. And for as a resource that can help you to know exactly how to do this, look for Lynn McTaggart's work. She has done scientific research to show that when a group of people get together with one intention to heal, to bring peace, whatever it is, they make a difference. Things change. So please work together on Zoom if you need to, and help one another to bring about the change that would make your life so much better while you're in physicality. Okay, you guys, you know what? I've done a lot of talking. So, I do believe Ho'oponopono is one of the better tools to use for clearing consciousness. And if you use it consistently, you will find a change. Remember that everything is consciousness and energy. Everything is consciousness and energy. The original consciousness was source consciousness, the creator. And we are a part of that consciousness. We have a piece of it, but we have access to so much more, so much more. And so if you use the analogy I gave you, in fact, as we go into meditation, I think that that's exactly what I'm going to do. So just knowing that the limited ego is but a gnat to compare with who you are. So let's close our eyes. Take your deep breaths. Totally relax your bodies of any tension. We're going to empty our minds. And I know that it's a challenge, but there's always the beginning. And it's like a muscle. When we learn to empty our minds, the ability grows to do that, leaving the space for a new possibility, for divine guidance. So right now we open our hearts. And we open our minds to receive new possibilities, to grow new possibilities. Our egos are like gnats, small and limited, in survival mode. That's it. Conditioned. And if you no longer want your life to be directed by your gnat, then right now I want you to see the truth of who you are. I want you to know the divine dwells within you. I want you to see your light. See it now. See it bright yellow, maybe white. You are radiating. You are so bright, who you truly are. Radiating out into the world. And you have the power. You have the power of God within you. And you are within God, which is the quantum field of all potentiality. We live, breathe, and have our being in this quantum field of new possibilities. Grasp that. If you have a physical, mental, emotional challenge, it doesn't matter how large or small, you can change it. You can affirm that God within you is life, is health. God within you can change any condition. It is being proved scientifically in this era. Joe Dispenza helps people do it all the time. Myrtle Fillmore did it. I did it with depression. You can do it too. So declare God within me, the divine within me has the power, and I believe it. With my imagination, I see it. I see myself running, laughing, joyful, healthy. I see the end result of my desire. And we give thanks. We give thanks for science that is proving what we've been teaching for decades, for more than a century. That we have the power. Thank you that we live in this era. Thank you that we acknowledge the divine within us. Thank you for this day as we go out into it, remembering who we are, not the gnat. We are divine. Thank you, God, and so it is. And when you are ready, feel a chair supporting you, your hands in your lap.